The brain is the most complex organ in our body. Our brain is composed of many parts that perform many different functions. The brain is vital to our existence. It controls our voluntary movements and it regulates involuntary activities such as breathing and heartbeat. The brain serves as the seat of human consciousness. It stores our memories, enables us to feel emotions, and gives us our personalities. In short, the brain dictates the behaviors that allow us to survive and makes us who we are. Surrounded by the thick bones of the skull, the brain is divided into a set of distinct structures with different functions. As a human embryo develops, the neural tube forms three anterior bulges, the forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain, that together produce the adult brain. The midbrain and a part of the hindbrain give rise to the brainstem, a stalk that joins with the spinal cord at the base of the brain. The rest of the hindbrain gives rise to the cerebellum, which lies behind the brainstem. The forebrain develops into the diencephalon, including the neuroendocrine tissues of the brain, and the telencephalon, which becomes the cerebrum. Rapid expansive growth of the telencephalon during the second and third months causes the outer portion, or cortex, of the cerebrum to extend over and around much of the rest of the brain.
The cerebrum controls skeletal muscle contractions and is the center for learning, emotion, memory, and perception. The cerebrum is divided into four lobes: the frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital lobes. The frontal lobe is associated with reward, attention, short-term memory, task planning, and motivation. The frontal lobe also recognizes possible future consequences of current actions. People with frontal lobe damage show changes in cognition, emotion, and behavior. Symptoms include poor memory, difficulty planning, short attention span, difficulty regulating emotion, inappropriate humor, and unpredictable aggression. The temporal lobe is associated with auditory perception, long-term memory, and emotional responses. Damage to the temporal lobe results in 8 major symptoms: problem with auditory sensation and perception, difficulty attending to auditory and visual stimuli, visual perception disorders, problems organizing and categorizing verbal material, language comprehension problems, impaired long-term memory, changes in affective behavior and personality, changes in sexual behavior. The occipital lobe processes visual input that is sent to the brain by the retinas. Parts of the occipital lobe are specialized for visuospatial processing, color discrimination, and motion perception. Damage to the occipital lobe can cause hallucinations and illusions through the eyes. Objects may appear to be larger or smaller than usual. It may also become difficult to detect motion or read after experiencing occipital lobe damage. 5 to 10% of all epilepsies are occipital epilepsies. Occipital lobe seizures are triggered by a flash or a visual image that contains multiple colors. Patients describe these occipital seizures as seeing bright colors and having severe blurred color and vision. The parietal lobe receives sensory information from the skin, tongue, and other lobes in the brain. The parietal lobe acts to integrate senses so that certain visual, olfactory, and auditory stimuli elicit an appropriate response. Damage to the parietal lobe can cause difficulty in using two senses simultaneously, inability to name everyday objects, difficulty reading and writing, inability to do basic math, inability to tell left from right, and problem with hand-eye coordination.
The cerebellum coordinates movement and balance and helps in learning and remembering motor skills. Hand-eye coordination is an example of cerebellar control. If the cerebellum is damaged, the eyes can follow a moving object, but they will not stop at the same place as the object. Hand movement toward the object will also be erratic.
The diencephalon is a complex of structures within the brain. The major components of the diencephalon are the thalamus and hypothalamus. The diencephalon functions as an interactive site for the central nervous system and endocrine systems. The thalamus makes up 80% of the mass of the diencephalon. The thalamus receives auditory, somatosensory, and visual signals that aid in motor control. Additionally, the thalamus relays sensory signals to the cerebral cortex and controls sleep and wake states. The hypothalamus controls the autonomic nervous system, which is responsible for maintaining homeostasis. For example, the hypothalamus controls thirst, hunger, and helps the body detect temperature. The pituitary gland is also controlled by the hypothalamus and plays a major role in hormone regulation within the body. Damage to the diencephalon can result in amnesia, hormone imbalances, inability to regulate thirst, hunger, and temperature, and irregular sleep patterns.
The brainstem consists of the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata. The midbrain receives and integrates several types of sensory information and sends it to specific regions of the forebrain. In addition, the midbrain coordinates visual reflexes, such as the peripheral vision reflex. A major function of the pons and medulla is to transfer information between the peripheral nervous system and the midbrain and forebrain. The pons and medulla also help coordinate large-scale body movements such as running and climbing. The medulla also controls several automatic homeostatic functions, including breathing, heart and blood vessel activity, swallowing, vomiting, and digestion. The pons also participate in some of these activities. For example, it regulates the breathing centers in the medulla.